Bomb threats, burglaries, and history's worst art heist. What is it about fast food that attracts the dumbest criminals around? When you have a warrant out for your arrest, you should probably keep a low profile, especially if you're a murder suspect. But that's not how Antoine Sims played the game in 2022. Sims had previously been involved in a drug deal that went south, and he was accused of setting a car on fire after a woman inside was hit by a stray bullet. After leaving jail on bond, Sims missed a court date, prompting authorities to issue a warrant for his arrest. And that's exactly when he decided to visit a McDonald's in Georgia with his fiancée. Everything went wrong from there. Sims got hot under the collar when he missed hearing an employee calling his order number. As a result, he ended up with cold fries. An employee offered him a refund, but Sims began yelling obscenities anyway, demanding fresh fries, throwing a drink, and even calling 911. The owner also called 911 and asked Sims to leave. A policeman outside asked him to sign a statement agreeing not to return to the restaurant. Rather than signing, however, Sims fled on foot. Police tased Sims once they caught him. A search of his fiancée's car revealed 31 grams of marijuana, and he ended up with both obstruction and drug charges added to his rap sheet. All in all, not a great day under the Golden Arches. In 2018, YouTube prankster Cody Roeder of Troll Munchies pulled a prank at In-N-Out Burger, one that would end up costing him more than he could have ever imagined. Roeder walked into an In-N-Out outlet in California wearing a suit and tie, claiming to be the new CEO for the company, Mr. John Trollston. As the new CEO, he demanded free food to sample. While the employees served up a free burger and fries, the manager didn't buy his story and called the police before Roeder left. Undeterred, Roeder hit up another In-N-Out the next day. This time, he went as far as to grab a customer's newly acquired burger and throw it to the floor, smashing it underfoot and declaring it contaminated. Roeder went on to post the videos on his Troll Munchies YouTube channel. In-N-Out was far from amused, however. They filed a restraining order against Roeder and sued him for over $25,000 in damages. Setting up a meth lab is dangerous enough without trying to do it inside a Taco Bell. In 2015, Taco Bell employees Christopher Adam Mathis and Kent Jerome Doobie set up a meth lab at work so they could cook while they, cooked.
Yes, science!
The police didn't find out until they were called to the restaurant about a suspicious person lurking outside one morning before dawn. As it turned out, Mathis was that suspicious person, and he had a peeled lithium battery with him, a key tool in meth production. The police investigated the restaurant and found some of Mathis's and Doobie's other meth lab ingredients in a utility area: lye, drain cleaner, and a butane and propane camping fuel mix. The Taco Bell was closed down in the aftermath to ensure that professionals could fully decontaminate the building, while the two men behind the operation went to jail on drug-related charges. If you're going to commit dumb crimes, you probably shouldn't let your stomach make decisions for you. In 2015, Frederick Warren walked into a Subway, threatened the cashier with a knife, and proceeded to pull cash out of the register before leaving. Unfortunately, the smell of fresh subs must have gotten him hungry. Warren was at least smart enough to realize he couldn't return to that Subway right after robbing the place. Luckily, he knew of another sub sandwich shop he could visit nearby, and now he had money to burn too. A surveillance video from that day shows Warren crossing the street and walking about 120 feet to another sub sandwich shop called Potbelly. Warren promptly bought himself a sub, walked to the back of the shop, took off his coat, and started eating. And that's where police found him, along with the knife he'd used for the robbery, and $186. There are many legitimate reasons to call 911, but being upset that Burger King has run out of lemonade isn't one of them. John Fortune found this out when he visited a drive-thru in Florida in 2018. He ordered a lemonade and discovered that the restaurant was out of lemonade when he got to the payment and pickup window. The cashier told him he would need to wait 15 minutes to get his order. So Fortune did the most logical thing he could think of. He called 911 to complain. The 911 dispatcher explained to Fortune that 911 isn't the place to call if you're unhappy with your fast food order. Through some questioning, she learned that Fortune hadn't even paid for the food he was so upset about. She tried to convince him to just leave and go somewhere else, but he was adamant about being hungry and wanting to eat there. It was then that the 911 dispatcher gave Fortune a reality check.
Come on. I know you don't seriously think that the police need to make Burger King give you food faster.
Fortune subsequently received a summons to court for abusing the 911 emergency system. Sadly, there's been no word on whether he ever got his lemonade. For some, McNuggets are simply a good excuse to enjoy a dipping sauce. At the very least, they don't taste quite the same without your favorite sauce on the side. So when Robert Goldwitzer Jr. ordered McNuggets from an Iowa McDonald's in 2021, he was sure to ask for his favorite dipping sauce. Unfortunately, when he got home and started rifling through his bag of food, it wasn't to be found. And that's when Goldwitzer got mad. Goldwitzer first called the store to complain, but his anger got the best of him, and his threats quickly escalated. At first, he merely expressed a sudden desire to beat up the employee on the other end of the line. Then he started making bomb threats. Refusing to take his threats lightly, the store's employees called the police and gave them Goldwitzer's phone number. When the police called him back, Goldwitzer had no problem admitting that he had indeed made a bomb threat. He made the same admission to the police in a later interview. The customer's angry tirade over some missing sauce landed him a felony charge. In 2019, just a few months after Stefan Gallared left his job at a Taco Bell in Georgia, he decided to return to work. Only he chose to do so after midnight in the early hours of Christmas Day. Gallared was dressed in black from head to toe and wearing headphones. He easily let himself through the drive-thru window and, once inside, returned to work like the good old days, wrestling up a whole Taco Bell feast himself. After he'd fed himself, Gallared lay on his side on the hard kitchen floor and took a nap. After waking up nearly 3 hours later, he grabbed a laptop and tablet and skedaddled. Video footage captured this whole adventure, which led to a positive ID for the Christmas feast sleepover bandit. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Gallared later faced a burglary charge for his nighttime jaunt to Taco Bell.
Hey yo, lesson here, babe. You come at the King, you best not miss.
Most of us have watched enough movies to know how getaway cars work, but Jeremy Levitt and Gabriel Gonzalez mustn't have been paying attention. In 2013, the two young men decided to rob a Burger King in California. They went through the motions of demanding money from the cash register at gunpoint, and that part of the robbery worked out well for them. However, they forgot to leave a driver in their running getaway car in the parking lot. Oops. While Levitt and Gonzalez were busy demanding money, one of the employees slipped outside unnoticed and sneakily drove the thieves' car around the corner from the restaurant. After a quick real-life performance of "Dude, where's my car?", the foolish thieves made a run for it across a nearby grassy field. With a slower start to their getaway than planned, the police had no trouble catching them up and hauling them to jail. Okay, Popeye's buttermilk biscuits are pretty good, but the average person will only go so far when those cravings hit. Try telling Belinda Miller that, though. In 2023, Miller became distraught when she realized her drive-thru order didn't have the biscuit she'd ordered. Her conversation at the drive-thru window grew loud enough for customers inside to hear, as she demanded the missing food and threatened to come inside. After Miller got her biscuits, she peeled out of the parking lot, still fuming. It wasn't long before she called Popeyes, this time threatening to drive her Toyota SUV into the building. And she actually made good on her threat too. Soon after, Miller returned and plowed her SUV right through the door, narrowly missing an employee inside. Then she backed out and drove home. It wasn't difficult for deputies to identify her house, since the front of her SUV was kind of a mess. They made a speedy arrest and took her to jail. She was later charged with felony aggravated assault and damage to property in the first degree. People are always escaping through ventilation shafts in the movies, and they make it look fairly easy, but can it be done in real life? Well, no. The classic ventilation shaft maneuver turned out quite poorly for a burglar who tried to use it to rob an Arby's in 2014. The plan seemed simple enough. Laquan Deshawn Guy climbed onto the roof of the store one night after it had closed. He had previously devised the brilliant idea to use the roof to access the restaurant's ventilation shafts. That way, he could bypass the need to pick locks or worry about alarm systems. Alas, his plan came to an abrupt halt when he got stuck pretty much immediately. Turns out, ventilation shafts aren't made for people to crawl through after all.
I know what a TV dinner feels like.
That branch of Arby's didn't open for business until 10 a.m., so Guy had to wait 10 hours for employees to come in the next morning. Luckily, it wasn't summer, but he still ended up dehydrated and suffered a broken arm. Desperate, in pain, and left with no other choice, Guy yelled for the employees to help him. So instead of leaving the restaurant with a bag of loot, Guy ended up traveling from the hospital to jail on burglary charges. And that's why you always look before you leap. Most art thieves decide to target something that's worth a pretty penny, or in some cases, outright priceless. Still, we've all gotta start somewhere, and those museum security systems are nothing to be trifled with. So nobody would blame you for kicking off your art theft career with a simpler score. Maybe an Arby's? When a branch of Arby's in Tennessee remodeled its building, the decorators chose some nice pair-themed art for the dining area. It had reportedly cost some $1,200. In 2011, two locals, Connie Sumlin and Gail Johnson, apparently fell in love with this fruity art and decided to make it their own. The plan was simple. One of the ladies would distract the store's employees with an order, while the other took the art off the wall, marching it out the door and into the car. Unfortunately, the heist didn't quite work out how they'd planned. For one thing, they paid for their food with a card rather than cash. This meant that authorities could connect the timestamp on the video footage to the timestamp on the food receipt to know exactly who had made off with the art. Caught through their own carelessness, the pair ended up in jail for theft. Not exactly the Monuments Men, is it?